Giuliani struggling under massive legal bills after defending Trump. CNN. Rudy Giuliani is staring down hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills and sanctions amid numerous lawsuits in addition to the new criminal charges related to his work for Donald Trump after the 2020 election. In court on Monday, the former New York City mayor said the legal quagmires have left him effectively out of cash. He even appears to have responded to some of the money crunch by listing for sale a three-bedroom Manhattan apartment he owns for $6.5 million. Not including standard legal fees, Giuliani faces nearly $90,000 in sanctions from a judge in a defamation case, a $20,000 monthly fee to the company to host his electronic records, $15,000 or more for a search of his record, and even a $57,000 judgment against his company for unpaid phone bills. While while he has declined in court to provide details of his financial state, his lawyers wrote this week that producing a detailed financial report is only meant to embarrass Mr. Giuliani and drew attention to his misfortunes. Giuliani's financial situation is likely to become even more difficult to navigate in the coming days. He faces potentially perilous, peril, perilous court decisions against him in two 2020 election defamation lawsuits as well as early as this week. While Giuliani's attorney's fees have not been paid directly by Trump's political action committee, Trump's PAC paid more than $300,000 in May to a company handling Giuliani's archives record for evidence preservation in court cases, according to federal campaign finance record and court filings. He is having financial difficulties, Giuliani's lawyers said in a filing this month in a civil defamation case brought by two Georgia election workers against him. Giuliani needs more time to pay the attorney's fees and would like the opportunity to seek the extension from the court. Giuliani is facing disbarment proceedings in DC and New York. His law license is already suspended, a situation his attorneys say leaves him further hampered from making money, and he's facing a personal lawsuit from an ex-employee filed in May while he's contesting the criminal charges that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis brought against Trump, Giuliani, and 17 others were undoubtedly added to the former mayor's legal bills. That prosecution is separate from the federal election subversion investigation that looms over Giuliani. He is co-conspirator one in special counsel Jack Smith's indictment of Trump related to Apple to overturn the 2020 election. While he hasn't been indicted, prosecutors continue to investigate, including speaking with Giuliani's ally Bernie Carrick about what Giuliani did to prove that Trump actually won the election, among other things, Carrick's attorney told CNN. The following his indictment in Georgia, Giuliani's political aide Ted Goodman released a statement calling the case an affront to American diplomacy, democracy. Owed $320,000 for recalls searches after phone was seized. While all of the legal peril Giuliani now faces revolved around his work for Trump questioning the election's result or primary consequences he'd faced prior to Monday's criminal indictment in Georgia has come from his inability to respond fully to 2020 election related lawsuit. When the FBI seized several of his cell phones in April 2021 in a now closed investigation, much of Giuliani's electronic records were held on the database operated by the company called TrustPoint.1 but they were archived and running searches on files the company held for more recent litigation isn't cheap. Even hosting his record with the company cost $20,000 a month, according to a recent court filing. Giuliani wanted to search the record so he could respond in such an election related lawsuit, according to the court filings. By May, Giuliani was more than $320,000 behind in payment to the document hosting company, according to a sworn statement he made in court. I do not have the fund to pay this amount of this time, he wrote. He negotiated for a year with what his lawyers say were third party funding sources for helping in paying his legal bills and awaited funding for 6 months for help with the Trust Point bill, according to Giuliani's filing this week in the Smartmatic case. Trump's the former attorney appears to have had some reprieve from the death in May, plus an additional $20,000 cover for additional data searches, according to court filings, thanks to the former president's political action committee. The PAC is not paying Giuliani's legal fees, unlike many other Trump allies, but it has paid more than $400,000 to Trust Point this year, with an unusually large sum going to the company in late May for $340,000, according to the federal campaign filings. Days after that distribution, Giuliani said in one of the lawsuits he faces that he obtained the funding to pay the arrearage and cured his outstanding bill with the Trust Point. He also discussed receiving that donation in his latest court filing, saying he thought he would help cover for the response he needed to make in the Smartmatic case. But the $340,000 payment isn't enough to cover more searches. TrustPoint will not extend any further credit to him, and his bill to keep his data held by the company will keep growing by the month, his court filings say. This is not merely an excuse that Giuliani trudged out when required to produce the document, his latest filing said. Trust Point executive didn't respond to the request for comment. Defamation lawsuit piling up. Giuliani is the defendant in several defamation lawsuits for his statement from the 2020 election. The federal judge in Washington ordered him to pay a portion of the legal bills of Georgia election workers Shay Moss and Robbie Freeman to cover what they had spent on attorneys litigating evidence gathering disputed in the case by July 25. He still hasn't paid that $89,000, according to court record. 2 weeks later, Giuliani backed down from contesting Moss and Freeman's claims that he made a false statement about them in 2020, saying he wanted to avoid unnecessary expenses in litigating. Moss and Freeman are still trying to win the lawsuit, and the judge is considering ruling ultimately in their favor. But in the meantime, they have asked the judge to order Giuliani to pay another $44,000 of their legal fees stemming from their Apple to force him to hand over certain evidence in the case. That's only one lawsuit to Smartmatic in its defamation case against Giuliani that prompted his growing data hosting bill asked the judge to sanction Giuliani, including by ordering him to reimburse the company's legal fees for failing to provide the company his recourse. Dominion Voting Systems, which is also suing Giuliani for defamation, is seeking documents for their case but has not pressed the issue of sanctions before the judge at this time. Giuliani also faces a false defamation lawsuit related to the election from the executive at Dominion. Smartmatic pointed to the Trump PAC's payment to Trust Point as reason that Giuliani should be able to comply with its demands that he search his record and provide the company evidence as it builds its case because it's now apparent others might pay for Giuliani's growing expenses. But the former mayor said that's not the case in his court filings on Monday. Giuliani cannot afford to pay at this point another $15,000 to $23,000 for more searches for documents in the case, his attorneys wrote. The New York State judge overseeing Smartmatic's defamation case has a hearing set for Wednesday. CNN's Paula Reed, Marshall Cohen, and Cara Scannell contributed to this report.